You don't. Sure. All right, we've got a packed schedule today, so let's go ahead and get started. For guests and visitors, my name is Steve Fairley, Club President. I'd like to welcome you all to the 40th meeting of the 47th year of the Dublin Worthington Rotary Club. Today's invocation and pledge of allegiance will be offered by Al Wood.
Okay.
Let us pray. Father, we ask your blessings on our club, our family, and those we serve. May this season, spring, lead us to new life and resurrection and continued service to all we serve. In your name we pray. Amen.
Flag.
America, and to the republic
Which stand.
under God,
Visible.
Justice for all.
Thank you, Al. Introducing visiting Rotarians or guests. No, there's no.
I don't believe we have any. I think we're all here as members today. Adrian is a member.
Yeah, you might as well announce it. We've got 3 new official
So
members.
officially, we voted and Adrian is now a new member of our club. Congratulations. Welcome, Adrian.
We also have Dione. She's a
Oh,
new member.
and DNA,
Hi,
new member that was voted in. Congratulations and welcome to the club.
thank you.
Thank you, Teresa, and everybody should know that we also did vote in Emily Biondo. She's not here today. She was the transfer from Marietta. So we have 3 new members. Very exciting. Okay, like I may have said, before we move into our sergeant, I'd like to do the sponsorship drawing if we can.
We can.
We can.
Will. Can.
Mr. Russell.
Has to write that. Okay. This is for 250. Thank you. This is complicated stuff. He doesn't know whose letters they are.
There's a little fanfare to it. Come on.
No, we're trying to hold back. You have to back.
Pass them back. Jerry.
We're 134. You have to look at the
Okay.
thing that tells us who won.
Oh,
So you pick a letter.
is that my role on this?
Oh,
Okay.
I go all my trying to figure this out.
Make sure everybody can see.
I lost confidence. Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. We're having trouble hearing too.
Is this any better, John?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll tell you if you win.
Yeah.
B,
That's right.
First bingo.
B134 is all the way down. I got this wrong last year. I'm gonna double check before I say. B134 is Tunxall.
Goes to.
Tunxall. Yes, correct.
Are we right on that, Jim?
Jim Miller.
Yes.
Okay.
Letters back in.
Yes.
It's easy.
B134, Tunxall. Okay. Well, what happens to all the ACDE 134s then?
Yeah, I should be pulling those too.
How many?
Well, there's only one row, 134.
Okay. I'm not the chair. I think it has to go in.
Okay, come back next week, we'll tell you who won.
Why ain't nobody won?
I don't know.
E47.
E47.
E47. This is serious business, no fooling around. It is. E47. Triple check, double check. It's Chuck Gibson. So,
There you go. I know him.
yeah, I know him.
Get one.
Chuck Gibson.
$250.
Gibson,
Gibson.
Gibson.
Here's another 250. I don't know. C12.
C12. Way at the top of the list here. Pete Barnhart.
Pete Barnhart.
Who's that?
He doesn't need the money. Come on.
You can hear you.
Oh, Judy's on. He's hyping.
Where's Judy?
She's muted and gone.
Look at that.
I don't know who Pete Barnhart is.
This one's for 500.
This is the real money. Yeah. Yeah, right. I need this. C38. Yeah. Oh my goodness. There is no 38. There's no 37 and 38.
Well, we'll just.
Yep.
We're gonna get an audit.
We're getting audited by the,
I'll take it.
I think that was a shed.
Yeah.
Chan.
we can still. We can-
Yeah, we keep that.
Just keep it moving.
Hey, Alan, 108.
A108. Does this one exist? It does. It's Mike Moulton.
Yeah.
500.
It goes to the tree.
And the big money.
$12.50's up next. Why is it $12.50?
Wallace Speed Company, WhatsApp audio.
It's 250 more, that's all.
Oh, okay. E156. That's way down there. Yeah. That is Alan Zink. Where'd he go?
He's up there. I see him.
Yeah.
All
Alan,
right.
hold
Did I
on.
win?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Alex, tell us how it is.
I have to turn the
Congratulations,
volume down
Al.
so Louise doesn't hear it. She heard. Come
Okay,
here, hon.
that's the official results. Officially audited.
Oh,
We broke the sponsorship bag.
Sorry, Jim.
Uh,
Something happened.
Jim Miller, do you have anything you want to add?
Thank you for everybody who worked on it, especially Al and Steve and Wynn. Thanks very much for your work. This brings in a great deal of the funds that we'll be needing in the upcoming years. So also thank you for everyone who's contributed.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, now we are ready for the sergeant, and now people have money. It's sergeant.
Boy, is this easy.
the pot carrier, don't put that in your mouth, Bolton. Take that right back out. Alan cannot do anything in Florida, or otherwise we would be. You want to fly up, Alan? Oh, he's gone now. Okay, Mr. Bolton has a spot, and I believe that's a 5 spot. We'll let him determine how many zeros he must put behind it. But definitely, the anomaly to the fact that A, he's a sergeant, B, there's a $2 max. So, in view of what took place, I think the math is correct. So, thanks, Mike. Any happy dollars besides all those people who are up? Raise your hands. Yes, Don.
Might ask, I'm wearing a mask today because I was exposed to COVID, but I am negative. My wife is positive, but passed for 10 days and had no symptoms. I was also able to get the antiviral within 3 hours of being diagnosed, which is terrific. So I guess what it says is, we're not glad we were exposed, but we're glad that we had no symptoms. We're glad that because we were vaccinated and perhaps the country was able to get the antiviral, we didn't have any symptoms. And hopefully that's the situation for a lot of other people that are exposed these days. So thank you. I'm wearing a mask just because I'm still with the protocol for wearing a mask after being exposed. Thank you.
That's great.
And where did you get it?
Oh, yes. We got, you may have read that Governor DeWine tested positive the Friday before he got Good Friday. Well, on Thursday night, we were at a fundraiser with him and we talked to him. So that's where my wife got it. That's where I was exposed to it. So which is ironic given that he's been person advocating the mask all and when he finally goes to a big event where nobody's wearing a mask.
First time. Right.
Yeah, there he is. So
stuff happens. Well,
yeah,
congratulations.
Yeah.
Peggy.
Happy dollar. I talked to Connie Hendren. Connie has her last chemo on May 15th, and then they'll do a scan. They feel they've got all the lymph nodes that were affected. They did the procedure, the Whistles procedure, and they took part of her stomach when they did that. So she's lost a lot of weight, and but she said to tell everybody, I have to give you a big hug, Steve, that she went from Connie, but she wants everybody to know she misses you very much and she loves you and she can't wait to get back to see you.
Thank you very much, Peggy. And I'm sure I'm sure that that's our feeling back to you. If she happens to be listening, I'm not sure if she is, but if
No,
not.
she's on her way to the doctor right now.
Okay, well, you please pass that same regard back to her too. Doctor.
Now this is a celebratory $5.
Louder.
A celebratory $5 because today is the bicentennial of the birth of Ulysses Simpson Grant. The president is an estimation for Ulysses Simpson Grant is going up. They recommend the Chernow biography, but especially his memoirs. As Doris Kearns Goodwin from Harvard University observed, one of the 2 best memoirs ever written by any president was the memoirs written by Grant.
President Grant.
Yeah.
Thanks. A little bit of academia, and probably good for all of us to take a look at that. Yes, Roger.
How many people have read the Rotary magazine? Did you see the article about Minneapolis? There's 6 Rotary folks, all the Rotary folks, Minneapolis got together to help the people on Lake Street that have the place. I grew up on 53rd Street. Lake Street is on Furnace Street. And it's disgusting what has happened. Oh, one other thing. As I mentioned, I probably shouldn't say this, but wait a minute.
Give him the microphone, please.
But they mentioned murder 5 times in the article. And the guy wasn't murdered, he was killed.
Okay. Is that a real situation no matter what? It's a tough situation that we wish we're not different
The
places.
Rotary clubs are really stepped up.
Good. Thank you.
It's everybody to wish Doug a happy birthday. That should be it.
Should we say,
I'm getting some cake.
well, bring $1 bill back with
You're
you.
gonna lose some Rotarians.
Any other happy dollars? Yep.
This is a paid advertisement. Wait a minute, Mike, I'll give you a check. This is a paid advertisement for May the 4th. Which ought to be next Wednesday. At the Davidson Theater, you're going to go because you want to hear some of the greatest music in Columbus to raise funds for the Ukrainians. And so Eric Nesbitt will be there, most of you know that. And why can't I think of that guy's name that plays the violin that we had here playing for us?
Age.
Already, no, I can't think of it. But anyway, Davidson Theater is in the Rife Center and starts at 7:30. You're really gonna like it. It's free for a donation. Suggested donations, $20, $40 for a family. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's very good, very good. Anybody else, happy dollars? Okay, since we're packed, I don't want to, I have some great stuff here, thanks to a lot of people, Paul Sinclair and all of his work that's done thus far. We are going to get into that and we're going to start, so keep your ears open, watch the emails about the member spotlights, because you will be fined in the near future if you don't know things like who was the favorite person that you would like to speak with if you had to do it all over again. And I'll never guess those, so here you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. All right, announcements. If you have announcements, please run up here. Run, jog, whatever. The first announcement is Arbor Day. Mike Moulton has brought a number of boxes full of trees. We will be doing a little service project after the meeting today to put them in bags. Mike, what else do we need to know?
Well, let's look at the trees. This year we have pinyon pine. Pinyon pine are the most drought tolerant pine tree available in the United States. And these are the state tree of New Mexico. So they're starting to move into the Midwest now because of their drought tolerance and because people don't want to use less water and resources. So this should be a good plant for our day.
Does that make it an invasive species?
It's not an invasive.
Oh, okay.
Like Bradford Perry just got moved to that.
Of the most important thing in this meeting today, we need volunteers, right?
Yes, we need volunteers to package these up and
Delivery.
And the delivery, I don't know who's got the delivery, to be honest with you.
Yeah, or we got a bunch of people in this room. We need what,
I
4?
thought Andrew said he had some people lined up, but I don't know.
Nope.
No, nobody? Okay.
Nope. We need deliverers for tomorrow. There's 4 sheets over here.
Okay.
Is there 4 schools?
Folks that can deliver these to the schools with, yeah, the instructions on how to plant them and take care of them.
I don't think we're getting it done. Does anybody want to raise their hand and volunteer? We got 4 schools. We need it. All right, I got 2.
Got 3.
We got 3. Darnell, Jim Allen, Jerry Katz. Who's the 4th? Jerry will take 2. Carry the load. Okay, now I feel better. All right. Alan.
Hi, everybody. I'm not here as me. I'm here as Jeff Apple, who asked me to remind you all that we're starting to raise money for the family picnic. Sponsorships, as in years past, for 500. If you know somebody or company that might be interested in that, feel free to pass that along to Jeff. He's happy to reach out to them. As well, if any members has in the past have donated $100 for their name on a sign, I believe that would be great. And also our main sponsor, fancy sponsor,
FC Bank,
FC Bank.
presenting sponsor.
Is presenting sponsor, that's what I knew was the word. FC Bank has signed up for that, yes, that's awesome for that. And on a personal note, if anybody hasn't seen our dogs, that is my dogs still work. As we presented last year, or they want to see it again, we're presenting at Westerville Sunrise. So if you want to visit another club next Wednesday morning at 7:30, go back and house in Westerville, feel free to do that. Thank you.
The smell still haunts me. You remember that?
Yeah, I use it a lot.
Yeah.
Hello, I actually have two things I want to share with you. So I shared a few weeks ago that Perry Middle School Interact Club is active and up and running and it's being chartered, or has been chartered according to RI. So we're gonna have a charter ceremony with the students at the high school, middle school on May 12th. And I mentioned this to the board last week, and they, anyone who's interested in participating is certainly welcome to join us. We'll provide lunch for the students and present them with their certificates. Trent, if you can be there, it would be fabulous. Also on that note, the Interact Club at Perry Middle School is very busy. They shared some pictures with me today, and we're going to try to get them out in the newsletter or something to the membership so you can see that. The middle school kids went over to Brookside Elementary School and they played games with the elementary school students and they were reading stories and they had a great time. So they are into service and doing the things that they should be doing, and I'm excited to have Jill Hitt as their faculty advisor. She's been awesome to work with so far, and I'm excited to get to know these kids more as we get through. So thank you to them, and congratulations to all of us for sponsoring another Interact Club.
It wouldn't be possible without you, so thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, any other announcements? Anybody on Zoom? No? Okay, then we're all right into our program, so I'll turn it over to Joe to introduce Joe. Here we go.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Steve. It is my pleasure to announce our speaker today for a number of reasons. I think what he has to say is going to be very interesting to everybody. And I have a familial honor involved too. As Lieutenant Joe Freundlich, clinical psychologist serving in the US Navy, embedded with Marine Corps, is also my nephew. So I'm very pleased to say that he's with us today on Zoom, and he is going to talk about his recent service dealing with the Afghan refugees. He has considerable expertise and experience dealing with PTSD matters. And apparently the Department of the Navy understood that too, and through a number of resources at this, including my dear nephew, Lieutenant Freundlich. So he can tell you about that in his current billet, which I want to hear more about as well too. And without further ado, Joe Freundlich.
All right. Hey, thank you, Joe, for the introduction. It's always good to be introduced by another fellow Joe. I am going to pull up my slides real quick. They're not long, but I just want to make sure everybody can kind of see what we're looking at when we're talking. All right. Can everybody see and hear me okay?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, awesome. I'll jump right in. It's really exciting for me to be able to talk about this topic. This is something that is very near and dear to my heart, something I've been trying to continue to stay involved in despite kind of getting back to my regular job. So right now, I've been serving for about 5 years now in the US Navy as a psychologist. The last 2 years directly, I've been connected with Marines here at Camp Lejeune. And I recently left my last job to start a new one with the Marine Information Group. So before, while I was deployed here for support for the Afghan refugees out in Quantico, Virginia, I am now with the Marine Information Group. So I'm working with more like intel, counterintelligence, a little more of the secret squirrel folks. So it's been a cool, interesting new change for me, but still familiar that I still get to wear my MARP hats and I'm working with Marines, which I very much enjoy. So prior to this, I actually checked in just a couple weeks ago. I was with the 2nd Medical Battalion, also here at Camp Lejeune. They are a Marine battalion that is designed to support all of the 2nd MLG. That is the Marine Logistics Groups. The best way I can describe that is like your linemen of the Marine Corps. They are not the infantry. They're not the ones dropping bombs and shooting guns, but they are the ones who bring all that stuff to the folks that need it. And without them, none of this stuff works. And this experience that I will talk about more today, they were intimately controlling of. They were the ones primarily driving this. They're the ones who put the resources together. They're the ones who built the situation, the pipelines of support. They're the ones who moved everybody. They're the ones who helped us build our facilities. And they were the ones who continue to run everything and keep it going. So this is something that huge props to all the Marines that I got to work with back home and went with me to this experience. So, for me, what I'll do is kind of talk you guys through a little bit about how I got notified, where we got addressed, where it went, and kind of the experiences I had. But I will also make sure I take some time to highlight just the importance of continuing to push forward and support these folks as they integrate into our society, as they try to get their feet settled and begin their new lives here in America with us. So for me, the 2nd Medical Battalion, we were at the time very utilized, oftentimes deployed in small units, small groups to support different Marine Corps operations. There's a lot of COVID taskers where folks were pulled to go help provide extra support for underserved hospitals, providing vaccinations, things like that. So kind of getting some short order tasks to get sent away from home was fairly usual for us. But this one was a little bit more short notice than I would have liked, or was expecting. I kind of watched the news and thought that sounds like something we'll be involved in. And then later that day at work, I got orders that said, you got to be on a bus tomorrow morning at 8 with all your stuff. And I said, where am I going? And they said, we'll figure that out once the bus lands where it's going. So at the time, we had sent a few other mental health professionals from Camp Lejeune that I know well. We were sending some folks to Kuwait to help with the initial evacuation and support Marines and getting folks settled there, and other areas over the Middle East. So I wasn't sure if that was going to be me or not. Eventually, I got told I was going to Quantico, Virginia, as the bus was already underway. Once we got there, I was informed that I was going to be part of almost a predominantly medical mission. What we were trying to do was set up facilities for an undetermined amount of time. I was told anywhere from 1 month to a year to expect it to be gone. Our job was to basically go to Quantico and in an unused area of the base, basically create an area for folks to be resettled, get medical screenings done to work with immigration processing, but also to provide 24-hour medical care coverage in an acute care setting, meaning things like urgent care in an ER setting. So ideally not long-term care, but certainly major issues, lots of traumatic injuries from evacuations. People may not have had a lot of medical coverage and care yet. So we're really anticipating preparing for the worst. Once we got on site, this is an unused part of the base out in Quantico. And it has basically just been a storage bunker for quite a while. So there was a number of sort of like warehouse tents and facilities. They were just filled with unused materials, supplies, vehicles, things like that we had to strip down, take out, remove, find other homes for, clean things, and then bring in new materials to build more or less a field grade hospital. We also did not know the numbers of folks that were going to be coming in. So we had a lot of unknowns, and they kind of gave us about 24 hours to get that stuff up and running, and then 48 hours to expect our first patient. And so again, I want to just say how proud I am of the Marines from the Marine Logistics Group that we were there. They were dealing with some folks that they knew that had been lost their lives out in Afghanistan that we heard about then. Those were some of our folks as well. So in this time of their own grieving and managing and dealing with those losses, they were still able to put their best foot forward and get the job done here and really clean this place out and get it prepared for what we really needed to get done. And so I just want to, again, give them all the best I can for that. What we did, we brought a bunch of different doctors. At the time, I was the only psychologist, the only mental health professional for what was going to be this site. I later found out that I was one of the only psychologists in the Navy at all attached to this. Predominantly, this was an Army mission, so there was no other Navy psychologists doing this kind of work. I was also sent with 2 behavioral health techs. These are, if folks know Navy terms or medical terms, sometimes you'll hear like the term medic in the Army. Navy uses corpsman, and health techs means they were specifically trained in mental health resources. They're good at assessments, training, they can provide care as well. And the ones that I was sent with, I knew it very well from back home. And so I was very fortunate to have people that, in my eyes, were able to be psychologists on their own, go out and do the job that needed to get done. And without them, it would have been a much less successful mission. As we set things up, a lot of the early days were trying to build just space for medical support and with mental health. While this mission ended up becoming significantly heavy for us, early on, people weren't sure what we needed. They were like, don't you guys just talk to people? I'm sure you'll make it work. And so while we were building all the other medical supplies, exam rooms, things like that, and trying to figure out how to set this up, me and my two techs had to really put this stuff together and figure out how to do this as best we could. As you guys may have guessed, my primary language is English. I know a little bit of Spanish to bumble through, but I do not know Dari. I do not know Pashto. And so as our Afghan folks were coming in and needing to get help, talk therapy can be really challenging without the use of interpreters. And so I would say around 95% of the sessions that we did and conducted were all done through interpreters. There were some folks that were able to speak English well enough to do sessions, but many of them prefer to speak in their native tongue, which is very common, especially when discussing significant, heavier emotionally laden topics, to be able to use the phrasing and knowledge that you'd like to do rather than trying to translate in your head as you go. One of the main challenges with that is all of our interpreters at the very beginning, particularly, were volunteers from the local area. So we have a lot of African Americans who previously immigrated, many from 20 years ago, who made their home here in America, who jumped at the chance to come and help their fellow countrymen transition. So many of them were not trained in medical care whatsoever. And if any of you guys have ever been to the doctor, working in a medical setting, that language is its whole own language, let alone through an interpreter. And so those interpreters had to learn quickly and on the job how to provide medical care, how to translate those things in an effective manner. And mental health in particular is an extra level of difficulty for them on that. So we did a lot of training, me and my techs, both with our interpreters on how to do that. So not to add your own discussion in, but how to translate directly so that we can all be making sure we're on the same page and providing services appropriately, but also how they can take care of themselves. If any of you have had the opportunity to either go through mental health treatment yourself or know someone who has, it can be a challenging and taxing process. Imagine being emotionally involved with the experiences of the people that you're helping, but being just a conduit. You're the one who's expressing the treatment through your voice and hearing those stories and expressing them to that provider. It was a very emotionally draining and challenging experience for them as well. And so part of our mission was also supporting them as well and providing group therapy and support for them throughout that process. Another challenge on the mental health front was all of our evacuees that we were working with came in with a multitude of presenting problems. I think we anticipated some background trauma, particularly from just the way that evacuation was done, the speed, the intensity, the dangers involved in folks getting to that airport in Kabul and getting out. But this is also a country that has been at war for decades. And so people had compounding trauma, many other issues. Some of the most common ones we saw were also family separation. So these are separations that happened over the last several years to decades, but also recently. Many of our Afghan evacuees left family members behind by choice, by necessity, by being physically separated geographically, and some just could not make it to the airport in time to be evacuated. And also due to financial strain and issues, some folks were just other places. And so a lot of those stories were very challenging to hear. And as a provider, you want to be able to help. And it was a very unique experience to not really be able to affect that change the way you wanted to. You're like, I don't know how we can contact them. Many of these folks didn't have phones, didn't have access to communication. In many areas that after the Taliban took back over, communication went down. And so these family members are really flying and navigating a challenging experience of their own without being able to reach back out to family. I'm also, being in the Navy, not a pediatric psychologist. I have worked with kids. I've got a young daughter of my own, but I have not been trained specifically in pediatrics, so I had to learn on the fly. We had a lot of women and children, and they needed resources as well. So I would basically train after hours at night with peers from my my program at school that I went to in graduate school, and they trained me on pediatric trauma psychology. So while it's not a formal degree, I feel like I've got a secondary badge that I've added for that to make sure folks got what they needed. This whole experience was very much a figure it out on the fly and make it work because it has to. If you look at this slide, I have a picture here. This is actually the side of one of our buildings where we had the primary acute care clinic, where most of the medical appointments would be done. That picnic table is where I probably did 80 to 90% of my sessions. That is outdoor under some cami netting. And if you see a little bit of that gravel in the foreground of that picture, right to the left of that is where we had just the waiting line for people to come into the clinic. So it's also not particularly private. We did a good job of having some sound barriers and things like that. We also occasionally could share rooms with the OBGYNs to have more private sessions if we needed to. So we were able to do that in more sensitive situations. But again, we had to make it work with what we had. The good news for that is, despite some really significant mental health stigma, so for men in Afghan culture similar to ours, the idea of weakness, the idea of showing vulnerability was very challenging for folks. And for many women, the expectation was that they should be able to handle it. They should be able to manage those things. They're trying to take care of their families. And so they should not take time for themselves. Very early on, through a lot of groundwork, a lot of work with some of our very adept interpreters, we were able to go out and make what I called house calls. We'd walk through living spaces, talk with folks, share our experiences, and did some peer-to-peer training so that the Afghans in our site were able to be peer counselors for each other and notify us when they were worried about somebody's safety or when they thought they really needed to see a professional. So we kind of extended our reach by training those folks and letting them know what was going on. And that was instrumental because that really built up our reputation and what we could do for folks. And as we started treating people in those early couple of days to weeks, a reputation started to precede us a bit. And they were like, hey, you should go talk to that psychologist. And because many people can't say my last name, Freundlich, I started going by the moniker Dr. Joe. And that's something that people will be able to reach out to. And I think that reputation was very, very helpful in getting people the comfort to be able to come out and reach for help. Again, dealing with the idea of limited resources, I think we were there from August 27th, and I got back on December 20th is when I returned home. Throughout that time, I would say December 10th, we were offered our own building space. They said, hey, this building is no longer being used. Would you like to do sessions in here? And I remember thinking, well, would have been good months ago. I think we'll be fine with a picnic table and a coat. At this stage, we're pretty good with it. But again, a lot of flexing and figuring out what to do and how. This is a very fluid situation. At the time, our site housed about 5,080 Afghan evacuees. We had over 104 pregnant women who delivered during their stay here. Many people who were evacuated very late term labors kind of came in with complications. Our OBGYN team, who we work with very closely, did a phenomenal job. And so we had a whole bunch of babies being born here in Quantico, Virginia. And they're all doing very well. For me, I think some of the highlights were being able to use my training in a very effective way to provide something and services and expand my reach. It's hard to do sessions for 1 hour or 20 minutes on end for that many people, and it was impossible. And so we were able to use our training from the Navy to really figure out how to extend that reach. So developing programs to educate about mental health, we would often do trainings at large scales to like hundreds of people through interpreters to warn and train folks on what to look for in mental health, to normalize those experiences, to explain that there are resources, and to show them how, and most importantly, once they get resettled, how to connect to those services. We also worked with acculturation issues, both for our Marines, but also for our Afghan evacuees who are going to now become a new group of Americans here. How do we navigate? How do we blend cultures? How do we look at what that looks like? How do we retain our own cultures and beliefs in a positive way while still learning how to make it work in a new environment. And this is something that took a lot of work on both ends. Many of our Marines have been deployed to Afghanistan, and for them, this was a very emotionally laden experience. That evacuation was challenging. Many folks had different beliefs and thoughts on that. The experiences of their friends who had been out there during the evacuation, and then also being embedded and connected with all of these people here took a lot. And so we did a lot of care, both for our Marine Corps side folks and our Afghan evacuees, and how to get everybody to mesh and do well. And I'm very proud to say that it went extremely well. One of the things that was not directly in my scope of duties, but something that I took on as a personal vendetta, was helping develop pipelines for folks to access care following their time at Quantico once we got them resettled. There's a lot of really good resettlement agencies in the United States that expanded drastically during this process. They go from usually resettling somewhere around 1,000 to 5,000 people a year or families to having to do 75,000 to 85,000 folks this year. That is an extremely massive jump really, really quickly. And that work is very, very difficult. So starting to build relationships with those resettlement agencies, and also pulling in what I am not super proud of, and the bill will come to favors from friends and people that I know, to start seeing folks with and without insurance once they got resettled. Did a lot of under the table dealing with people that I went to school with, people that I've known in the Navy who've gotten out, to say like, hey, can I tell you a quick sob story? And they would say, wow, that sounds incredible. I hope I can help some way. And I said, well, did you know that they're actually coming to your town in about a week? And you can see them. I already gave them your name and access and contact information. They won't have insurance. And those folks have been doing well. I've been getting updates from those providers, and that's been really good to hear. Creating an environment both for our Marines and for our new Americans, for that peer support and recognition of mental health and stigma has been something that was instrumental. We would oftentimes get folks being brought in by their friends or tent mates, saying, hey, we've been talking, after what you told me, I think this person's really struggling with something. I think it'd be good if they talk to you. And again, with that reputation, with some of the work that we've done and benefit we had for folks, they were willing to come out and talk to us. And it was something that, I would say over my 4 or so months out there, we talked to just about every person we had on that base. That's a good, over 5,000 some conversations. I also taught parenting classes, both for young moms who, may have started their marriage and motherhood very young in an arranged marriage, and also fathers who, what I called was culture shock, where I'd say things like, hey, I'm going to work with your wife for her appointment right now. You need to watch your kids. And they'd be like, oh, I don't do that part. And so we had to do some crash course in what parenting might look like, setting boundaries that are healthy, navigating things. And I did a lot of work with dads on how to engage with your kids. So they kind of said things like, oh, they just don't like men. And I said, well, they're playing with me right now. Your 5-year-old seems quite comfortable with a random guy that doesn't speak the language. I bet it's something we can work on. And people really took to that. That became very, very popular. Also, while folks were on site, once we realized this was not a sprint and this was going to be more of a slog as we resettled folks, I advocated for additional language coaching classes for folks to learn English, vocational classes, and other educational opportunities on site, as well as some of the other sites in our area, to kind of coordinate and how do we get resources to folks so when they're here, they're not just wasting time and sitting around, but they're also preparing to get their feet set, hit the ground running once they get resettled. We worked on developing childcare curriculums because, again, tons of women and children and families were here at our site. So we had a massive need to sort of corral these kids. They were doing a lot of free range chickens where they're just off and running and playing, So we had to work on developing some curriculums, starting school and age appropriate stuff. How do we get kids to learn some of the language issues? How do we navigate and give people safe spaces to reach out and talk and deal with help if they need to at an age appropriate age? So we did a lot of training volunteer civilians with Catholic Christian Charities who were doing a lot of that daycare work to train them up if they weren't already, childhood educators, to get them up to speed so they weren't trying to fly blind themselves and to make sure they were doing the best work they could. And then again, for me, this became something that I really dove into fully, and to have the opportunity to work with people that the more I knew them, I felt this way early on, but I feel that way stronger now, is that they are truly deserving of help and support And to be able to do that in that early stages of them coming to America was something that for me was just a massive opportunity that I am forever grateful for. These are some of the most resilient people that I've ever met. And I look forward to hoping some of those folks eventually get into neighborhoods that I'm in. Some of the major takeaways that I have are when working with our folks from Afghanistan who are coming over here now, it is an absolute culture of support, pride in one's country and oneself, and resilience. They are some of the strongest people that I've spoken to. Learning about their experiences, both past and present, how they manage those things, how they put their families first, and their willingness to do something challenging, like talk to someone like me about their mental health and working on navigating some of those processes, took immense courage, and it was just a real honor to be able to work with them. Again, for the Marines, I think they're just the most versatile, in my certain opinion, branch of the armed forces. They can just do damn near anything, from humanitarian aid to these evacuations to setting up these sites across the country to help focus and get people resettled and rehomed the way they need to be. They treat everybody with respect. Absolutely incredible work that they put forth. Again, my opinion, but I think America will be far better with these people as our newest Americans. I think they're going to do a phenomenal job. They're some of the most hardworking, motivated people I've seen. I think while there's going to be a period of time where it's a challenge to get used to things, to learn the language, to get resettled, I think ultimately this is going to be an absolutely phenomenal gain to our, cultural gumbo. Things that I would recommend for everyone to do and engage in. Please vote for Afghan resettlement issues going through Congress now. There's the Afghan Adjustment Act. Right now, these folks have been screened thoroughly for safety issues from DHS, Department of State, things like that. They've also gone through all of the normal immigration, medical screenings and that nature. But right now they're here under temporary visas. And there's an incredible backlog between visas and amnesty folks and asylum seekers right now. And these folks are going to have a very difficult time navigating that. Right now they have, from when they landed, they have about a 14-month, once that paperwork started, 14-month period of temporary legal residency. If you guys can vote and advocate for processes and rules that will help them get a more direct line to becoming permanent legal residents, that is something that I can't advocate for enough here. So anytime you see something like that, hear about that, these are folks that have been extremely well vetted. Many of them were already in a years-long process of trying to gain the American citizenship and visas. These are predominantly folks who have supported our troops overseas. They've acted as interpreters. They've fought alongside of them. These are the family members of those individuals. Those are folks that lived on after those folks may have been hurt or killed. These are family members of women who have been in legal situations, who are now running as lawyers and teachers and principals of schools. These are people who are working as bank tellers and have really accepted that idea of allowing women to work and build and do, and are now targeted for that by the Taliban, and that's why they left. So these are folks that we want here, and we want to stay here and want to see them succeed. And I think anything we can do to do so would be an absolute benefit we can. Some of the other ways we can help, you can donate. One of my favorite agencies right now is Human Rights First, as well as HIAS, H-I-A-S. It's a nonprofit that helps resettle folks. They're doing great work right now with Ukrainian refugees, folks at the Mexico-US border, as well as continuing to work with our Afghan folks and families here in America right now, and folks trying to gain legal access back over now. There's also potentially going to be opportunities to foster families, if you guys have an opportunity to, for kids that were unaccompanied minors, or are just dealing with issues that they need to be separated and rehomed. This is something that's going to be ongoing for probably several years. But I know that I'm still a point of contact for several young folks that are getting resettled for their mental health stuff, CPS reports, things like that. So I still get some calls and tracking some of those families as well. So any way you guys can help is something that I look forward and look into. Also, while I don't know the exact numbers, I do know that Ohio has taken in a good number of the folks that I worked with out in Quantico for resettlement purposes. So be mindful, be ready. There will be a lot of folks, I think, walking around. So please say hi, don't be a stranger. They're going through a lot, and I think they're going to try to find a way to really integrate and be a real benefit to our cities, our towns, and our country ultimately. For right now, I've got several minutes. I can hang out and talk. I'd be happy to answer any questions about this.
Anybody have any questions on Zoom or anybody in the room? And Joe, I'm gonna stop your screen share just so you can see it.
Oh yeah, please do.
It's a lot to take in.
Can you please, I'm sorry, can you please repeat the agencies where you said we could donate, and because I just get the highest, but I didn't get the other one.
No, great. Yeah, so highest, I'm blanking on what it stands for, but they're a Jewish nonprofit and they work with everybody across the board. Is fantastic. The other one is Human Rights First. They do a great job of connecting people with like pro bono legal care to help with the process of immigration paperwork and all of that stuff. But they also help get resources. They oftentimes are sending folks, it's a civilian company and nonprofit, but they are often sort of in a military mindset where they will almost deploy folks to these certain areas to help with like Haitian refugees and things like that as issues around the world come up. But they're phenomenal and extremely helpful.
Do they also take like volunteers that are not translator related? Because
yes, correct. Oh yeah, that's a great point. So if you guys have any skill sets or jobs or otherwise that you think might be beneficial, reach out. The answer is yes. They will have interpreters for that if that's a major issue. So just like I said before, many of those folks do not speak Dari, do not speak Pashto. I'm learning Dari because it's something that I was passionate about, and I thought, man, if I see somebody I know, I better know how to say hi and all that good stuff. But it is not required. They will be able to help that if that's a skill set you have. My experience with this process was, while the language could be helpful and would have been really great to know ahead of time, it was clearly not necessary. They can tell when you're being genuine, people can tell when you care, and people can provide good, whether it be legal representation, good medical care, or otherwise without necessarily knowing the same language, as long as we lead with respect and caring.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Great question.
Anybody else? Alan, take off mute, please. Oh, camera on, mute off. There we go. Close.
And I'll get it all together here. It's been a long time since I was a Navy officer, but first I just want to say thank you for your service. And my takeaway from those years that I think you certainly illustrated the point. Our U.S. military can get the job done, and they get it done in very quick time. And the Marine Corps is probably the best at doing that, even though it is part of the Navy. But
well, yeah, big brother, I agree, sir.
So anyway, thank you for doing that, because a lot of us wondered in such a scramble that, as it was portrayed and viewed by us, how in the heck we were really helping those folks who deserved help. We weren't getting that kind of a message that you gave us. So thanks for your presentation.
No, I'm glad I got to it. Something that I think is important to talk about. I know when we were there, our commanding general at the time was overseeing that from Camp Lejeune, was someone who often talked about being like, this is not something that people are going to hear about unless we bring it up. So I took that to heart. It's something that he was like, hey, when you're there, when you're home, tell your families what you were doing. This is not, they're going to talk about different components of this. This is one that we did not do wrong. This is beautiful. This is something that we really put the effort in this resettlement work that we did, I think was something that I am going to be very proud of for a very long time. So.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Joe. Let's thank him for his great presentation.
Thank you.
Any interest of time is one after. We do have a raffle. $12. $500, $485. I got 43 and 46, but no 45. Nobody has 45?
It's 38 C.
Yeah, right?
500, 538.
500, 538. We have the right reel. Yeah, should we just give it to Jim Miller? He's gonna win anyways.
Mike Holton's gonna win, but if not, we're gonna just move it forward.
Sure.
3-0.
504.
500, 484. You ain't kidding me. Hey, all right. $12 to pay. How much is in the Ace of Spades? $159. $500, 503.
Yeah.
Mike? Are you kidding me? All right, Mike, get up here. Got them all laid out nicely here.
I already signed 2 checks for you. No
Yeah,
more
come on,
today.
bring that third one out here. Let's see, how about that one right there? I think that's it.
Ace of Diamonds. Please stand up.
What have a Sharpie? You colorblind?
I think that is safe.
All right.
4-way test.
Yeah. Speaking of the 4-way test, if you will join me in the recitation of the 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it true? Second,
Sincere to all concerned.
third,
Will build goodwill and better friendships.
and fourth,
Will be beneficial to all concerned.
Thank you, everybody. Remember, we're doing a little quick service project right now, so stick around. Thanks.
What's your name?